Your online activity might not be as private as you may think, as government could be monitoring your internet activity, especially on sites like Facebook.
This as the Data Protection Commission, which is responsible for the protection of an individual's personal data, is now moving steadily with the enforcement of the Data Protection Act 2003.
In fact, the commission brought members of the press together with other relevant agencies today to educate them on the features of the act.
Candido Knowles explains tonight what the Data Protection Commissioner is doing to ensure your personal information isn't being accessed and disseminated in violation of the Act, and how it's expected to coexist with the impending Freedom of Information Act.
It is my job to be aware as to what is going on in the society, to be able to address issues as they arise.
And it's a job Data Protection Commissioner Sharmi Farrington Austin says she takes very seriously. This as there have been a number of cases of personal information being leaked to the press. More recently, we've seen the case of a government spokesman's private information being aired in a local daily.
We understand the press role in being the watchdog of a democracy. However, as protectors of the individual's personal information, it is our job to make sure that the individuals, especially the private individual, that their personal information is protected.
We see it all the time in countries like the United States, where persons running for public office are heavily scrutinized in the press. And it's because in jurisdictions like the U.S., there exists a Freedom of Information Act. But here, where none exists, the Data Protection Act offers protections for not only private citizens, but for public figures as well, whose personal information is being leaked to the public. And while the media must be guided by the law, veteran journalist and attorney-at-law Jeff Lloyd says there's an ever-increasing demand by those the media serve to keep them properly informed.
There is a growing clamor in this country by the parties that we serve, particularly the public, for information that they believe they have a right to, and which the Constitution to some extent provides, so that they could be, one, informed, and so that through that information, they can make better decisions for their own lives. And you know, the most fundamental decision that a citizen ever makes is who is going to govern them, who is going to craft the policies, legislations, resolutions that eventually are going to determine how we govern ourselves.
It's why local journalists have long wanted a Freedom of Information Act. But even when it's enacted, there are still limitations, meaning members of the public might still not be able to get a hold of personal information of an individual presenting for public office whose integrity might be questionable.
If there is a request for public information, it is our job in protecting and balancing those two rights to ensure that when we release the public information, that it does not contain information that specifically relates to the private person without their consent.
Meantime, the DPC is about to acquire the services of attorney Thomas Evans QC, who is expected to help enforce the act and will prosecute those in violation of the law.
If you feel that your personal information is being breached, especially if it's being used, kept undisclosed without your consent, you have a right to report that to our office, and we have a right to investigate that.
Candido Knowles, ZNS Network News.